What's up, YouTube? Jonny B here again today, and we are doing something that we normally do actually, and that is installing RocketBunny kits on FRSs here local to AZ. So if you guys are looking to get your kit installed, you know, you can always hit me up, follow me on Instagram, hit me in the DMs, and then that way, you know, you guys can get in contact with me. We can make arrangements. I can tell you my prices and all that stuff. So this is the latest addition to going wide body kit here in AZ. This guy is from Tucson. He's got a V2 front bumper on there already with V-Lance, TRD side skirts, and it's got the big old nurse spec wing. So I think it looks pretty cool. It wouldn't go with the theme of my car, so I would never install it on my car, but it looks pretty good. The car is Raven Black, and the kit is already painted, so all I really have to do is chop it up and bolt it on. We're going to be using some nicer hardware instead of just using self tappers, but before that I'm going to use the self tappers just to make sure the kit is all aligned, and then I'll go ahead and go through and drill out all the holes much bigger so we can put the hardware that we're going to be using, which I think is like a Z-spec hardware, I think is what it's called, with some like rubber I don't know what they're called. They're just like rubber pieces that go into the fender, and then when you tighten them they expand. I guess they would call like rubber riv nuts or something like that. So let's go ahead and start chopping up. I'm gonna go ahead and lift the car up and start with the front. So the next step is gonna be to go ahead and lift it up. You can see we already have the front lifted up. I got the jack here for the rear so we can lift it up from the diff, and then we are gonna be removing the wheels because they're gonna be in the way. We're gonna be chopping up a lot of stuff. We're gonna be chopping up the inner fender liner as well, and we just don't want them to be in the way. And if they were nice wheels, obviously it'd be even more of a reason to, but these are still the stock ones, so he's gonna be swapping them out later on. So we're gonna have another RocketBunny kit with stock wheels for a while, but hey, it's the struggle. I had to do the same exact thing when I installed my RocketBunny kit. So let's go ahead and remove these wheels. So here we are with the first wheel. Let's go ahead and remove it. They are 19 millimeters. Go. Always make sure you wear gloves because your hands are gonna get really dirty touching all of this stuff. So smack it a little bit, pops off, and now we have access to all of this inside where we're gonna be chopping and deleting some of this inner fender liner. And then just like that, we have a floating car. So now time to modify the inner fender liner in the front. So first off, we tend to chop it around here because with your wider wheels, a lot of stuff is going to be in the way, and you're not going to be able to cover this up. So typically what we do is we chop it around here and just cover the piece that is open to your engine bay. In this case, it's already been chopped because the V2 kit really couldn't hold it and it was just like rubbing off on the wheel. So that's not an issue there. But over here, we have some clips. We have a clip here, clip here. We have two clips right under this, right there. We have this little spin-off knob that we have to do, a clip here, and then this clip here we actually leave. So what I do is I straight line cut from here, and then also where it tends to curve, I always chop that off because that's going to be in the way of the wider wheel. So let's go ahead and chop that off, and then I'll show you guys what's the little chunk I leave, which is pretty much this. Before we continue to the next step, you can see we have the RocketBunny kit right here. It's already pre-painted. That's how the customer brought it to me. And I went ahead and mocked it up, figured out how much we have to cut out, give it some little marks here and here. So we're gonna be chopping it sort of from here up and then all the way around this. Typically with the V1 kit, you don't cut all the way down to this little line right here, the little body line. You kind of give it enough to where it's still going to be able to bolt to this section here. We're going to move that around, and that way you still have that little section right there in the kit where it's like flat like a square that actually bolts up to this section here. So I think last time I did is I just chopped it right at this little section to be able to utilize this little piece to actually mount the kit. And then from there we're going to decide how we're going to want to modify these side skirts so that they will fit with the new kit, because this is obviously going to be missing from here. It's going to be rounded just like it is on the kit there. So let's go ahead and get to cutting. Before we start cutting, make sure put on some glasses, because this thing tends to spray all over the place. The fender is now cut all the way down, and then from here I just went ahead and straight lined it down. You see all these little fuzzy things, it's like a little rubber piece that they put behind there. And then I just cut it straight at an angle right here, remembering to leave this little piece on because we're going to be bolting to that. So you can see that I didn't cut much above the frame, because this is going to be the lowest point. This is where the tire is going to be hitting. So anything, you know, anything more than that doesn't really matter, because the tire won't even be able to reach this. So you can see I kind of like try to keep it lined up with all of that. And this is all just me doing it from memory. Obviously I've done this quite enough times, and I am precise enough and safe enough to just go ahead and do it without even masking it off. Most people tend to mask this off just in case the angle grinder or whatever they're using slips, and then they don't want to leave like a big old gash in someone's paint. But I've done it enough times to where I know how it's going to turn out. So this is the cut for the front, and then we can go ahead and modify this. Once we modify this, we can go ahead and slap these on with self tappers first, and then we can change it out for the hardware later on. So let's go ahead and continue modifying the frame, which is going to be these two sections here. So just to give you an idea of what it is that I do, you can see relief cuts there, pretty much in every corner. And then this is how I start folding it back. Same thing over here, relief cuts, and we're going to fold that flat, because that's how it looks. So we don't want any of that interfering with our new tire and wheel setup. So here we are with the frame piece. As you can see, I went ahead and folded it all down, got it out of the way, and then this thing turns into like a flower type thing where it gets all flattened back out, and it's not going to be interfering anymore in the way. You can see that flat with that piece of the body. The bottom part I don't really modify, because then I have to like bend the fender, so I tend to leave that. This doesn't really interfere with the tire. It's mostly this top section. You can see there's a little bit of openings where I went ahead and cut, so I'm going to be using just some what is this, caulking, or just any type of sealer, just to go ahead and fill those in, so that way no water or nothing gets inside of there. Okay, got all the cracks filled up, and now we can go ahead and paint all of this so that there's no metal exposed. We're going to be using some Rust-Oleum flat black to cover all that up. That way it helps prevent rust, which is something that we don't really have here in Arizona, so I don't have to take extra precautions. But with that, we will have enough. Obviously all this is gonna like disappear because of the flat black. You're not even gonna be able to see it. It just kind of stands out right now because of the white. So let's go ahead and paint this up. So it has all dried up, paint is on there good, got it all sealed up as well. Now we can go ahead and continue with installing the RocketBunny kit. We're going to be bolting it to all of this. Obviously I went ahead and wiped it all off, got all the dust off, and now we can go ahead and try to fit this on there. It's gonna be a little bit difficult by myself, but it's definitely something that is doable. So now on to the install of the wide body kit. You can see I already went ahead and started, just so I can be able to show you guys. This is where the line is supposed to meet. So same thing with the bumper and the fender. You want to use the same body line. Line up this piece first, because if you start on the actual fender piece first instead of the bumper extension, you are going to have a bad time, because this is going to be all crooked or not lining up properly. So what I did is I lined it up with the bumper, and then went ahead and bolted it down. Obviously this side gets cut to whatever this is going to be covering, because you don't want the bumper, you know, in the way of your wheel, because you're going to be rubbing on it. So as soon as that gets done, I went ahead and measured this fitment right here. You can see the line with the body line on the fender. This is where this is going to line up, and then you just line it up with the fender extension, so that way you get that perfect fitment between both of the pieces. And then back here I went ahead and just use a self tapper to go ahead and connect it. That way you get this fitment right here to line up perfectly, as you can see here. Let me focus on this. There you go. So that's about as perfect as you're gonna get the fitment. And then now we go ahead and mount the rest of it. You see it's kind of like flapping around, and then you're gonna go ahead and go to this corner piece and make sure that this piece gets lined up perfectly here, and then from there you can go ahead and do all the rest of them. So pretty much you want to get the first angle done first, and then you want to get this one done next, and then you can go ahead and start doing all of the rest of the ones in between, because that way when this is fully extended you can see that there is no longer a gap in between there. And if you were to do them one by one, you might end up with a crooked piece towards the back. And just like that, the RocketBunny kit is installed in the front. See, bolts all the way down. I did remove the side skirts the car has on it. I haven't done the rears, but the fronts are completely done. We're not going to be having any interference. So the RocketBunny V2 bumper with the V1 wide body kit actually looks pretty good. Doesn't look too bad. So now the car looks very wide. So when it comes down to installing the rear RocketBunny kit, the first thing you want to go ahead and do is measure out and make sure that this is going to fit perfectly, because if you don't put this perfectly, you're going to go ahead and ruin either your paint job or not be able to fill in your gas tank because of the fitment. And therefore that's why I go ahead and do this side first, to make sure that I'm able to open up the gas tank, and then from there I just go ahead and bolt it on, and then I mark like right there where I need to cut, where it's going to be interfering. And then here you can see that this is the actual stock OEM body panel or fender, and that's all going to get deleted. And same thing here, you go ahead and measure where you're going to cut the part of the fender out. Obviously this is just part of the inner fender liner, and then we can go ahead and chop off the inside section of that, just knowing, you know, where we need to cut, what needs to be covered up, and how it's going to be placed. So I just mocked it up for now, and I'm still going to show you guys how to cut and weld this piece and seal it all up right underneath here. So let's go ahead and take this off now that I know exactly where I need to cut, and let's continue. So here we are with the cut. Obviously you have to chop off a little bit of the bumper, and then you have to get in there pretty deep to be able to chop the fender all the way through. And then from here I go all the way right above the body line. See the body line there? And then I just curve it back down to that spot that we had marked where the body kit ended. So then from here you're gonna go ahead and pry this open and pretty much peel off this front section right here, because that needs to be removed, and then we're gonna leave the skin underneath, which is what we're gonna fold up to go ahead and weld onto this and then seal it all up. You can see I went ahead and grinded down the cut a bit where I could, and then I also went ahead and grinded down this section here, because that is where we're gonna be welding to when we fold it up and weld it to here. So if you look in here, you can see this is pretty much close to the limit of the highest you're going to be able to go, because we're going to be able to straighten it out with the inside of this, and it's going to pretty much flatten it out to where it mounts to this, and it's just going to be a nice flat piece. And any further than this, if you have a lot of camber, I guess would be sufficient. If you're trying to go really low, you're going to have to chop it up much higher. So I would suggest probably like very close to the gas cap or the gas cover here, and you're probably going to be chopping about an inch and a half above the body line. But for this build, he's not going to be going with a lot of camber, doesn't want to be too low. He's still his daily driver, so we're just going to go with something normal, and that's just a couple millimeters above the body line, just to where this strains out. So now the next step is to chop these up into individual little strips, fold them up, tack weld them on, seal it up, and then also paint it so nothing happens to it. Here we are at the next step. This is the step where you go ahead and slice it up into various little pieces. That way when we do pull on the sheet metal, it actually has a chance to reach and come in contact for us to be able to weld it and then seal it all up. If you don't do the slits, then that's just never going to happen. So that's one of the main things that you have to make sure you do. So the next step after you got all the tabs bent and sliced is to tack weld it. As you see there, I am tack welding it all on. We're going to do it all the way across, and then we're going to go ahead and chop all of the excess off and then grind it all down and then seal it all up. So let's get to it. Let's continue welding all of them on, and then we will get on to the next step. Got all the spot welds done. Pretty much just spot welded everything, and then now it's time to go ahead and chop off all of the excess. Obviously this is going to be nice and rigid, nice and strong, probably stronger than it was stock, because most of the time they just use this type of like glue stuff here. So I just went ahead and applied most of the heat to the bottom piece because I didn't want to warp the top piece. You kind of just want to like let the pool go right onto it and hold on, but not really go straight at it, because it will make a hole when you're trying to weld it right into the panel, because it's really thin metal. So I went ahead and grabbed the angle grinder and we chopped it all off. And as you can see here, the inner fender liner also got chopped up in the process, and that's just how much it used to hang. So that's about as much as we chopped off. So that's going to give us a lot more clearance for the rear wheels in case, you know, we're going lower. Obviously, since we're going wider, that would have been an issue once your suspension starts to articulate even a little bit. And then so now what we're going to go ahead and do is chop off all of this right here, all this inner fender liner, probably up to where we cut, just to, you know, make sure that this isn't going to be rubbing on the wheel. So now with that excess chopped off, you can see the inner fender liner kind of lines up with the section that we cut. So now I'm going to be getting something called glaze to go ahead and fill all this out. But before that, I'm going to grind this down, make the edges a bit smoother, and then we're going to seal it all up with that glaze and then finalize it with some paint. Some Rust-Oleum paint, just to cover all that up, to make sure that it is protected from the elements. It's looking much better. Now let's go ahead and get the glaze and start sealing up all of those openings, but it's definitely looking pretty good. So now that we got all that welded up and it's looking good, we're gonna go ahead and seal it. I'm gonna be using some glaze stuff, so it's called gold glaze. It's like the next step after Bondo most of the time. So we're just gonna go ahead and seal up all of these openings under here. That way we don't get any dirt or water in there. So it's a little bit hard because it's flowable, so we have to kind of wait for it to sort of dry so it starts filling in all of that stuff, and then we're gonna go ahead and sand it down and then paint it over. So here it is with the glaze, got it all sealed up, no more openings. So now what I go ahead and do is I sand it down, and then I hit it with a coat of black Rust-Oleum so it seals it all in. So now that we got it all sanded down, we can go ahead and paint it to finalize the seal, so that way it gets protected. No more openings in here, and the flat black paint, you know, obviously covers all that imperfections up, seals it all up, and now we're good. So like I said, this is the basic install, so it's just getting it all sealed up. We don't have to make it pretty, it just has to work, just has to have some function. So we already installed RocketBunny Kit here in the back. It's a bit dirty and dusty, obviously, from everything that we've been doing, but it's looking good. Do a full little walk around, even though it's kind of tight in this space. We have this one in the back as well. There goes the back. The RocketBunny kit looks really good. Installed. And this wing actually looks pretty good too. It's all done and the owner came to pick it up. So now we're gonna drive it out. Still on the stock wheels, but that's gonna change here pretty soon. Just gonna do one last little walk around. Look at that. Still needs wheels, but those will be here shortly.